members of the press, our viewers from home and offices, good afternoon. Welcome to the national briefing for Monday, 4th May 2020. Today, we will take the chairman of the Presidential Task Force. We'll also take technical reports from the Minister of Health, the Director General, NCDC, and the National Coordinator, who is back with us. In addition to those updates, we shall take reports from the Minister of Environment, Minister of Foreign Affairs, and the Minister of Information and Culture before we take your questions. So we'll begin today with the Chairman of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 and Secretary to Government of the Federation. You are invited to the podium, sir.
Members of the Presidential Task Force, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, gentlemen of the press, I say good afternoon, and I welcome you to the national briefing for today, Monday, the 4th of May, 2020. The World Press Freedom Day was celebrated yesterday, Sunday, May 3rd, 2020, and I want to join Mr. President in congratulating our hardworking and diligent men and women of the Nigerian media who had consistently served as a necessary watchdog of our society. This role has been made more manifest in our current efforts in drawing government's attention to areas of improvement, creation of awareness, and broadcasting the daily press briefing in a professional manner is highly appreciated. Let me reiterate a significant portion of Mr. President's goodwill message in which he decried the negative impact of the ongoing disinformation, fake news, and hate news perpetrated through the digital platforms. This is fraught with undesirable consequences for a country like Nigeria, because this is the time for us to remain united as a nation to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. In line with Mr. President's plea to the media, I also wish to urge you to continually work together to eliminate this unpleasant phenomenon. Today marks the beginning of Mr. President's directive to ease the lockdown in Lagos, Ogun states, and the Federal Capital Territory, and the introduction of new measures nationwide. The guidelines on the first phase of the new measures spanning from today, the 4th of May to 17th May 2020, have been published in 8 newspapers. Awareness is also being created through the broadcast industry on electronic media, online platforms, as well as dissemination in local languages by the National Orientation Agency and other sources. The Presidential Task Force has been monitoring the level of compliance with some of the measures, and early observations showed lack of compliance with social distancing and wearing of masks or cloth coverings. We note particularly the chaotic scenes around the banks and other financial institutions. We must reiterate that the danger of infection is not over, and that individual actions will contribute to the success or failure of our measures. We urge citizens to minimize the risk of getting infected while trying to transact in the banks. We similarly urge the banks to ensure that their ATM machines and online banking systems are in good order and stocked regularly to avoid convergence of customers in their premises. The PTF fully understands the desire of Nigerians to come out to continue their lives after 5 weeks of lockdown. State governments and security agencies have, however, been advised to enforce the measures rigidly, and violators will be prosecuted. Let me remind you once more that this easing up is in phases, and those who are permitted to open have clearly been defined. Our admonition to Nigerians is that it is still desirable to stay at home if there is no compelling reason to go out, and to comply with the measures already, whether at home or not. The PTF has also received reports on the level of compliance with the nationwide ban on interstate movement. The objective of the ban is to slow down the spread of the virus across state boundaries. The determination of government to enforce this policy is not in doubt, and as we progress, we believe that the proper alignment with the directives of Mr. President would be pursued. There has been very noticeable relocation of Almajiris from one state to another up until yesterday. With the ban on interstate movement, the continuation of this exercise would not be in alignment with the guidelines issued. The Presidential Task Force shall engage with the respective state governments on how to achieve their objectives. As we journey into the new phase of measures that have been put in place, it is imperative that I reiterate the importance of adherence to the guidelines, more so that preliminary reports indicate that there is observable high level of breaches by the citizens. I wish to, at this point, convey the assurances of the security forces that the rights of Nigerians will be protected and their lives and properties preserved. Therefore, I passionately appeal to Nigerians to desist from attacking security personnel in the discharge of their duties and not recourse to taking the laws into their hands. With regard to Kano, the teams dispatched from Abuja have continued to work with the state structure, and appreciable achievements have been recorded in improving manpower support, deploying appropriate equipment, increased testing capacity, and treatment centers. Efforts are also ongoing to upscale the training of medical personnel in Kano and neighboring states on the management of infectious diseases and to provide them with BPEs for protection. Private hospitals have also been advised to seek accreditation before taking up the management of infectious diseases. Our collaboration with Kano State still remains focused on strengthening the existing structures, especially for sustainability. The result coming out of the state is a comforting indication that efforts put in place, which are being strengthened, would yield the expected results. The Presidential Task Force has also received reports about medical facilities and doctors turning back sick patients for fear of their illnesses being COVID-19 related. The Presidential Task Force appeals to these facilities, especially public hospitals, not to neglect treatment of other ailments, because such actions have resulted in avoidable death. The Honorable Minister of Health would engage the management of our tertiary health institutions to address this. Ladies and gentlemen, I must always appreciate the tremendous support of all Nigerians during these previous phases and going forward. Worthy of mention are our religious and community leaders, our frontline health workers, administrators, the members of the press, as well as all individuals and groups that have contributed to the successes achieved thus far. The battle is still ahead of us as a nation, but together we shall overcome. As we commence this new phase today, we would require your greater understanding and support to ensure that our decision does not result in compromising our health for our wealth. I count on the resilient Nigerian spirit and call on all of us to make this phase work. It can only be done with the active cooperation of all citizens. I will now call on the Honorable Minister of Health, the DG, Nigerian Center for Disease Control, and the National Coordinator to provide updates on new developments, and thereafter the other ministers would address you. I thank you for listening. Thank you.